Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing super well. So we are in a new filming space today. I finally got an office. It feels so good to have a private space where I can film videos for you guys. And as many of you guys know, I used to film in my living room right next to my kitchen. So it was very inconvenient because if people needed to go cook or wanted to watch TV or just hang out in the living room, I would be there just filming and people had to be quiet and it just was not convenient. So now I finally have an office space where I can film privately for you guys, and I'm just so happy about this. The background looks a little bit weird because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to put back there, so just excuse the boxes. I promise in a few weeks it's gonna look good. So today we're gonna be talking about a case that happened in Mexico, and it is an extremely heartbreaking case. We will be discussing the case of 7-year-old Fátima Cecilia and how her life was taken from her. Researching her case was truly frightening. Fátima was taken by someone she knew, by someone she trusted. I do want to add a trigger warning because we are going to be discussing graphic details in this video. With that, let's jump right in and let's talk about what happened to Fátima. Fátima Cecilia was born on January 8, 2013 in Mexico City to her parents Maria Magdalena and José Luis. Together they had 4 children. They had an 18-year-old daughter named Carla, a 13-year-old son named Luis, and an 11-year-old son named Samuel. And then they had Fátima. Now, Fátima was the baby of the family and she was the only child of Maria and José Luis, since the other children were from previous relationships. So they were a mixed family. Shortly after Fátima was born, Maria and José Luis actually separated, and he moved out of the house and took 13-year-old Luis with him. As for the eldest daughter, Carla, she was 18 years old, so she just ended up moving in with her boyfriend, and now it was just Fátima and her 11-year-old brother, Samuel, in the house with their mom, Maria. Now, things were not easy when José Luis and Maria were together. They did not have a lot of money, and now that they were separated, the family's financial status got even more difficult. José Luis was a shoemaker, but when he separated from Maria, he switched to driving taxis, and he wasn't earning very good money in that job. He was also an older man, he was in his 70s, and he was suffering from dementia. So Maria was left to make ends meet for her children, and she began selling candy in the town streets and near the church with Fátima and Samuel alongside of her to pay for their food and for their basic necessities. A nearby store owner said, quote, "The 3 of them stayed in the same bed. They were in a difficult economic situation, but there was no shortage of people who offered them a taco." The whole neighborhood kind of knew of their situation and tried to help as much as they could. They would donate them toys, food, and just kind of always kept an eye on them to make sure that they were okay. The store owner said that Fátima liked hanging out at the store and would ask customers if they could give her their change so that she could buy her and her brother's favorite candy. She would also ask customers what they did for work, and once they answered, she would just ask more questions, and she just wasn't a shy kid. She actually liked talking to people, and she was a very curious child. Her sister Carla says that Fátima wanted to grow up and become a doctor, or she wanted to become a millionaire so that she could give money to the children in the streets so that they could buy clothes and they could buy food, which is just so sweet. You know, the fact that her dream was to help people either by becoming a doctor or simply having enough money to help children that were in the same situation as her is just so incredibly sweet and just shows the type of person that Fátima was at even such a young age. Everyone who knew her described her as a very curious and cheerful, sweet little girl. A neighbor said that she was so well behaved and always did what her mother told her to. If her mom asked her to stay still while she did something, Fátima would listen and entertain herself with anything, you know, even with like a stick on the ground or a plant. You know, she listened to her mom and followed the rules. Everyone only had good things to say about her. She would also sometimes go to a nearby internet cafe, and when the owner's daughter was there, she would stand behind the daughter's computer and she would watch Peppa Pig or El Chavo del Ocho with this girl, since Maria couldn't afford to pay for her to use her own computer. So that was pretty much Fátima's life. You know, things were not easy for the family whatsoever, and I don't know, just hearing about how she would stand behind this girl and like borrow her computer from behind just breaks my heart. I mean, I hate hearing about families in this type of situation and children in this type of situation. But despite the situation that Fatima was in with her family and their economic status, people say that Fatima was happy. She would sometimes go help her mom sell candies, she would hang out at the corner store near her house or at the internet cafe, and she was also attending school at this time. Fatima was starting first grade at an afternoon school while her brother was in his school during the morning. So, this is a routine that the family had when it came to school. Samuel would go to the school in the morning. When his classes ended, Maria would go pick him up with Fatima already dressed in her school uniform. Once they picked him up, they would then drop Fatima off at her school at around 2 p.m. And while she was in school, Maria would sell more candy or, tidy up around the house until it was time to go back for Fatima at around 6:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And then after that, they would all go back home. So the days were fairly long for the family, but it's what worked best for them at the time. Now, let's fast forward to Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. That day was just like any other day. 7-year-old Fatima was dropped off at school at 2 p.m., and in the meantime, Maria and her brother went to go sell candy while she was in class. Maria says that she really wanted to sell a lot of candy that day because Fatima had told her that her shoes were falling apart. So Maria wanted to work extra hard that day and sell lots of candy so that she could buy her daughter brand new shoes. Due to her trying to sell a lot, she kind of lost track of time and was running a little late to pick up Fatima when her classes ended at 6:30 p.m. Maria knew that if she didn't let the school know that she was running late, they would have to send Fatima to a facility that was about an hour away where children would go wait for their parents to pick them up if they were late. Now, Maria was thinking to herself, okay, I'm only going to be about 15 to 20 minutes late. The school's probably just going to wait with Fatima before sending her to the facility. So she figured that she was good on time. However, she did just want to confirm this. So she actually called the school and told them, hey, I'm going to be 10 to 15 minutes late. Can you please watch Fatima and just make sure that she doesn't get sent to the other facility? Unfortunately, this is where a big mistake was made. The school employee who took this information didn't report it to the rest of the staff who were in charge of that because this employee thought, okay, well, she's just going to be 10 to 15 minutes late. It's not that big of a deal. No need to tell anybody, which was wrong of them to do. I mean, this employee should have 100% notified the other staff members about this, even if they assumed that Maria would get there ASAP. I mean, a mother is calling you to let you know that she's running late and is asking for someone to wait with her daughter, and you just decide to not let the other staff know about this. I don't understand this decision that the employee made, and we will get into that a little bit later in this video. So Maria continues making her way to school under the impression that her daughter is still there and that someone is with her daughter making sure that she's safe. She arrives to the school just 10-20 minutes late, but to her surprise, Fatima was gone. Maria immediately started asking the staff where Fatima was, but no one knew, and almost everyone said that they hadn't even seen her. One person, however, did come forward and said that they did see Fatima and that they saw her with a man. Maria thought that this was really weird because her father, Jose Luis, wasn't really involved in their lives anymore, but she called him just to check if he actually did go pick her up. So she asked Jose Luis, but he said no, that he never went to go pick up Fatima and that he wasn't even near the area. Now, this just gave Maria a horrible gut feeling, and she just knew that something wasn't right. On top of that, how did the school just let Fatima leave with a stranger? They definitely should have been checking who picked her up and confirmed that this was okay with Maria. Again, we're gonna circle back to the school a little bit later in this video because they messed up so badly. So after learning that Jose Luis wasn't the one that picked up her daughter, Maria went straight to the police station to report Fatima as missing. But the police told her that they couldn't consider her as a missing person or even begin an investigation until 72 hours had passed, which is something that we see way too often. Unfortunately, I think it's shocking that the police said this about a missing 7-year-old girl. How are you not in a hurry to search for a missing child? It's just absolutely insane, and Maria tried to convince the officers to make an official report because, again, Fatima is literally 7 years old and no one in her family picked her up from school, so something bad must have happened to her and somebody must have taken her. Despite her pleas, the police said that they couldn't file an official report and that they had to follow protocol. I just can't imagine how frustrated Maria was not knowing where her 7-year-old daughter was and just receiving absolutely no help from the police. It wasn't until the next day when Maria returned to the police station to ask for help once again that they finally agreed to investigate. They started off the investigation with an Amber Alert with information about her last known location, which was her school, and what she was wearing, which was her school uniform that consisted of dark blue pants with white and yellow stripes, as well as maroon shoes. The neighborhood and members of the community were helping as much as they could with the search, and the news outlets quickly picked up on it. People were so scared about such a young little girl disappearing, and they just felt absolutely heartbroken for her and for her family. Detectives were trying to get a hold of surveillance footage from businesses near Fatima's school, but it took them some time to get this evidence. I'm not sure why it took them so long. Like, they could have just asked the people that had the cameras, like, hey, a little girl is missing. Can I look at your cameras to see who took her or what happened? I don't understand why it took them several days to get this footage. In the meantime, the search for Fatima went on, and it continued for 4 days, but there just wasn't any sign of her or of what could have happened to her. There really were no witnesses that saw Fatima leave with someone or saw her get in a car or anything. All they really had was that one witness statement that stated that they saw Fatima with a man. For now, it honestly just seemed like Fatima had vanished. But then, on Saturday, February 15th, the body of a little girl was found in an abandoned lot 3 kilometers away from Fatima's school. The little girl's body was inside a plastic garbage bag, and she was found without her clothes on. Through DNA testing, the body of the little girl was confirmed to be 7-year-old Fátima Cecilia. An autopsy was conducted, and it revealed that she had suffered from sexual abuse, as well as had been beaten and tortured before being strangled to death. My heart just aches thinking about what Fatima's last moments were and how scared she must have been. When it was announced that they found her lifeless body, outrage grew over Mexico. There has been an ongoing fight against femicides in Mexico and in Latin America. So when yet another little girl was found murdered and sexually abused, it just caused so much anger and frustration to all the women and feminist groups. Whoever did this to her had to be found and held responsible. Everyone knew that Fatima deserved justice. That same day that her body was found, authorities were barely getting their hands on the surveillance footage from surrounding businesses. They looked through the footage and they shared what they found with Fatima's family first before sharing this information with the public. Now, Fatima's family was annoyed. They were frustrated at the fact that it took police so many days to get this footage. It pretty much took them almost a week to get this evidence. At this point, the family felt like it was already too late. Fatima was already gone. They criticized the police for not starting the investigation for Fatima earlier when Maria first reported her daughter as missing. Police literally told her that she had to wait 72 hours, which is just insane. The family was also just so disappointed with the government for not having their own cameras in the streets, because the cameras that were on the streets were not working. These are just public cameras that the government had put up. And when Fatima first went missing, the family tried to get footage of these cameras, but they just weren't working. So they were frustrated at the fact that the government even put those cameras up in the first place. What's the point if they don't even work? If it wasn't for the local businesses handing over their camera footage, the family would have never found out or seen what actually happened to Fatima. And they just felt like the government should have been more responsible for making sure that their own public cameras were working. So at this time, the family was just really disappointed, but at least with this footage, they could finally find out what actually happened to Fatima. This footage showed Fatima outside of her school on the day she disappeared. She was standing in the entrance of the school, waiting by herself, when all of a sudden, she was approached by a woman. This woman grabbed her by the hand, and then the two of them started walking away together. In another camera, they could see Fatima and this unknown woman walking and having a conversation. And honestly, it looked like Fatima knew her. She looked really comfortable talking to this lady and walking with her, plus she was holding her hand. Now, while Fatima looked comfortable, this woman did not. She looked really uncomfortable. She kind of kept looking back as if she was on alert mode, as if she thought someone was following her, or if she was just on the lookout to see, who was staring at them. She just looked really suspicious. She was also holding really tightly to Fatima's hand and wouldn't let it go. The two of them walked for about 15 minutes, and then they were seen getting inside a white car and driving away. And that was it. That was all that the authorities and the family had about about Fatima's disappearance. The question now was, who was this woman and why did she take Fatima? On February 17th, 2020, the video was released to the public, and on February 18th, a sketch of the woman was released to the public with a $100,000 reward for any information leading police to this woman. The sketch was being shared everywhere, and at first the community thought that they had figured out who this lady was, and they had kind of figured it out through social media and from people coming forward in the community stating that they knew who this was. Let's just call this woman Lola for the sake of the video because her name has never been released. So people in the community thought that the woman in the sketch kind of looked like Lola, and because people just kept saying this, everyone started to kind of believe it. So they reported Lola to the authorities, but when police looked into her, they found out that this wasn't her, that she had an alibi, and they ruled her out. Now, Lola later asked for help to clear her name from the public because she was scared for her safety after being wrongfully accused, and she was receiving so many threats after all of this, even though police had cleared her. After this, the search for this mystery woman was still on. The same day that the sketch of the mystery woman was released, a woman, who we will call Sam, came forward. Now, Sam said that this mystery woman in the sketch was renting her home and lived there with her husband and their 3 children. Sam said that the day before Fatima's body was found, this woman and her husband had just abandoned the house, which Sam thought was really weird. I mean, they just left without even letting her know what was going on or without even giving her notice. So Sam was wondering, did this couple's disappearance have anything to do with Fatima's case, or was it just a random coincidence? When police heard this information, they thought, finally, we have a lead, and they went to go search Sam's house. During the search, they discovered some very disturbing evidence. Inside the house, detectives found Fatima's shoes, some of her jewelry, and blood. The sweater that the mystery woman was wearing in the video was also found at the house, as well as straps that authorities believed were used to hold Fatima down. Now, the couple that were renting this house were now the prime and only suspects in the murder of Fatima. So, who is this mystery couple? Well, they were Gladys Giovanna Cruz Hernandez and her husband, Mario Alberto Reyes. Detectives spoke to neighbors to learn a little bit more about Gladys and Mario, and neighbors said that they were, quote, strange and quiet, that they would never say hi to other neighbors, and that they fought a lot. They said that Mario threw gasoline, alcohol, and perfume on Gladys and tried lighting her on fire on 3 different occasions. I mean, that's pretty intense and very violent. So all the neighbors were well aware of how abusive their relationship was and just how toxic they were. It was also known that Mario had problems, and what's truly disturbing is that they had 3 kids together and that 2 of the kids attended Fatima's school. In fact, one of their daughters was in Fatima's class. Now, besides that connection, Mario was a taxi driver whose area of work was mostly around the area where Fatima's body was found. Now, Gladys's mother, Marcelina, spoke out and said that her daughter was suffering at the hands of Mario for many years. She says that one of their children, her grandchild, told her on one occasion, quote, "Grandma, my dad was going to burn my mom. He put perfume on her and was going to light her with the lighter, and I told him no, to not burn her several times." Marcelina also said Gladys had reported Mario several times for his abuse and even went back to live with her 3 different times after being beaten by Mario, and a judge had actually placed a restraining order on Mario, but he didn't listen and authorities didn't do anything about it. He would force her to go back together with him by taking one of their kids to, quote, spend time with by going on a walk or to the park, etc. He would tell Gladys that he would only return the child if she got back together with him, or that she would never see her children again and would find them in a, quote, very sad way, which probably meant dead, abused, or beaten, or who knows? Marcelina said that Mario was dangerous and very manipulative, and that Gladys only wanted her children to be safe, so she endured his abuse so her children wouldn't have to. Gladys's mom said that she was another victim just like many other women who suffer abuse from their husbands, and she was so sad hearing that her daughter most likely had something to do with Fatima's death because she knew in her heart that Gladys would never harm anyone and that she was probably only complying with Mario out of fear for her own children's safety. safety. So after learning about Mario and Gladys, authorities released their photographs to the public to try to locate them, since they fled their home and no one knew where they were. Fatima's grandpa said that at first he did not recognize the woman in the sketch, but once he saw clear photos of her, he did. It turns out that detectives were right. Fatima did know Gladys. Gladys had actually lived with Fatima and with her family for some time. Maria said to the media, quote, "She lived here in the house. I didn't think she was capable. She has 2 little girls and I never saw her mistreat them. That's why I doubt that she would take the life from mine. I didn't know her husband and I don't know why she would retaliate against my daughter." So how did Gladys end up living with Fatima and with her family at one point? Well, it turns out that a few months prior to all of this going down, Gladys and Maria had met at a small gathering that one of their neighbors was holding, and Gladys had confided in Maria about the abuse that she was enduring with Mario. She told her that she was scared of her husband and that she was trying to escape from him because he was threatening to beat her and set her on fire. She said that he was very violent and would hit her in front of their children, and that he had even abused the children at one point. Maria, being kind-hearted, offered her a room in her own home for 300 pesos, which is less than $20 a month, without even really knowing Gladys. She just wanted to help this woman. This woman had kids and she was being abused, so she just wanted to open up her home for her. She literally opened the doors to her home for a woman in need, and then this woman just ended up betraying her in the worst way possible. Maria said that she never had any fights with her or any type of disagreements, and that she was always kind to her and to her kids. I just can't imagine the betrayal that Maria was feeling at that moment. Now, while Maria never argued with Gladys, her brother did come forward and said that at one point he had an argument with Gladys because she wasn't paying rent, and that argument ended with Gladys packing up all her stuff and moving out. I mean, still, it's just shocking how Gladys is connected to Fatima. I mean, her kids literally go to school with Fatima. One of them is even in her class, and on top of that, she lived in Fatima's home with her family. It's so disturbing to know that someone Maria welcomed into her home could just turn around and betray her and hurt her in the worst way imaginable. While detectives learned more about Gladys and her connection to Fatima, they continued doing everything they could to track down the couple. They sent out an Amber Alert, they notified the boarders, told the media everything, and on February 19th, just a day after their names and photos were released to the public, the couple was finally found and arrested. Now, they actually tried bribing their way out of their arrest and offered the police money to let them go, but thankfully the officers did not accept the bribe and the pair was finally caught. After the couple left the house that they rented from Sam, they were trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Where could they run to? Who could they turn to for help, and how could they hide? I mean, they knew that detectives were looking for Fatima and that they had the surveillance footage and that they had the sketches released, so they needed to hide ASAP. That's when Mario had the idea to go to the home of his aunt Irma and ask her if he could rent a room in her home. Now, Irma had not seen or heard from her nephew in years. In fact, she didn't even recognize him when he showed up to her house. Mario literally had to say, "Irma, it's me, your nephew Mario." And that's when Irma finally made the connection that this was her nephew. She asked Mario, "What's going on? Why do you need a room? And who are these people? Are those your kids? Is this your wife? I haven't seen you since you were 3 years old." And that's when Mario explained that yes, this was his wife, these were his children, and that they needed a place to stay in the meantime while he tried to find some work. Now, Irma only agreed to give them a room because Mario had 3 kids and she just felt bad for them, so she offered them a room for a few days until Mario could get back on his feet. Shortly after welcoming them into her home, Irma was watching TV when suddenly Gladys's picture appeared on the news. Irma says that she looked at the photo and she was like, "Is that Gladys? Is that her?" Because remember, she just met this girl, so she didn't really know her that well. So she was trying to figure out, is this Gladys on the TV the same Gladys that's in her house? But then, all of a sudden, her nephew's face also appeared on the news. And that's when she made the connection, this is Mario and this is his wife. She continued listening to the TV, and that's when she learned why they were on the news. She said that she immediately felt disgusted. She was like, Mario and Gladys are accused of kidnapping and raping and killing this girl. Like, what is going on? So she says that she immediately went to go confront Gladys about this, and in an interview that Irma did, she says that she straight up told her who killed the girl, and that surprisingly, Gladys confessed to everything. Irma sat in silence while she explained how they ended up abducting and killing Fatima. With the abusive and toxic relationship that Mario and Gladys had, Mario had given Gladys a very disturbing demand. He told Gladys that he wanted, quote, a girl to make his girlfriend for life, a little gift, and that if she didn't complete this demand, he was not going to let her enter their home, and that he was going to rape one of their own daughters. My stomach just dropped when I read that. Even just saying that out loud right now is just truly disturbing and just so disgusting. Gladys said that she wanted to protect her daughters, and she decided to listen to Mario. She was gonna go find him a, quote, girlfriend, and she decided that that would be 7-year-old Fatima. Gladys said that she knew it would be easy to get Fatima to leave with her since she already knew her and she already knew the dynamic of her family. She thought to herself, well, Fatima doesn't have a present father, she has a mother who is busy working to make ends meet, and she honestly just figured that no one would even look for Fatima if she went missing. So that day, Gladys picked Fatima up, as we know from the surveillance footage, and took her to her in Mario's home. Now, I'm just going to put a big trigger warning again because what I'm about to say next is very disturbing. When they arrived, Mario painted Fatima's nails, dressed her in a new dress he bought for his, quote, new little gift, and then R-worded her. According to Gladys, after Mario sexually abused her, Fatima would scream and just cry because she was in so much pain and because she was scared. Now, out of fear that the neighbors would hear these cries, and because they knew that people were actually looking for Fatima and that she was all over the news and that people were worried about this, they decided that they needed to kill Fatima. Now, this was not part of their original plan. Honestly, Mario planned on just keeping Fatima as his girlfriend, as his gift, and just he probably meant to abuse her for a long time, but because they were scared, they knew that they had to get rid of her. Gladys says that Mario grabbed Fatima, he gave Gladys a belt, and then Gladys began to strangle Fatima. Now, she says that she wasn't strong enough to do this, so Mario actually had to take over, and he's the one that strangled Fatima to death. Then they disposed of her body. Just hearing those details is so disturbing, and of course, when Irma hears this, she's just in shock. Like, she's in shock at the fact that this girl, Gladys, who is a mother, would do this to someone else's child, and she's also just in shock that her own nephew did this. I mean, yes, she hadn't seen her nephew since he was 3 years old, but still, to learn that one of your own family members, like your own blood, could do something so evil to a little girl is just something that I can't even imagine. Irma was honestly really scared for her life at this point because she was just living alone in this house with these two killers. And she told Gladys, you need to turn yourself in. Like, what you did was wrong. You need to call the police and you need to get this over with. Irma also knew that she had to alert the authorities on her own because she was scared for her safety and she just honestly didn't trust Gladys and Mario, so she made a plan. She told her brother-in-law to go get the police and bring them to her house while she stayed at the house stalling Mario and Gladys until the police arrived.
Le dije, ¿pero fue por dinero? ¿O fue por venganza? Y me dijo, no. Le dije, ¿tú conocías a la niña? Y me dijo, sí. Le dije, ¿a su mamá? Me dijo, sí. Dije, no, hija. Le dije, te tienes que entregar. Yo ya no te puedo tener aquí ni una hora más. Te tengo que entregar. Y me dice, es que mire, él siempre me decía que quería un regalito. Dije, ¿cómo un regalito? Sí, que quería una niña chiquita para que fuera su novia toda la vida. Y que si no se la llevaba, él iba a hacerlo con mis hijas.
While waiting for the police to come, Irma could tell that Mario was starting to get suspicious of her. He kept telling Irma that he was gonna go leave with the kids, and that's when she tried to calm him down and explained that she was only going to report Gladys to the police, not him. She even said, listen, I'm gonna personally take Gladys to the police station. I'm gonna turn her in. I'm not gonna tell them about you. You can just stay in the house. Don't worry about it. But of course, this was just a lie. Irma only told him this to stall him. Now, Irma didn't know this, but police had already discovered that the couple was hiding at her house because they had apparently used drones to locate the couple. So before the brother-in-law could even call the police and go through with the plan that they had made, police were already on their way to Irma's house. While Irma was stalling Mario, the police finally arrived and arrested Mario and Gladys. And that's the story of how the pair were finally caught. I don't even know, just reading about this is so crazy. I don't know, can you imagine a family member showing up out of nowhere? You haven't seen them in years, and then you welcome them into your home, and then you see their face on the news because they're being accused of R-wording and murdering a little girl. I can't even imagine that. And Irma is a good person. I mean, she turned on her own family. I don't know, I just admire the courage that she had to call the police and turn her own family in. Once the pair were arrested, they were placed in a preventative prison while the investigation continued. Now, going back to Fatima, her funeral was actually held on the same day that Mario and Gladys were arrested. It was funded by neighbors and members of the community who wanted to give what they could, so Fatima had a proper burial and a beautiful funeral, which is very nice of them to help. There was mariachi, flowers, toys, food, and balloons at her funeral. The community, neighbors, advocates of women's rights, and Fatima's family gathered and were chanting things such as "Justice for Fatima" and "Later it could be one of your kids, wake up." They also had a minute of silence for her. There was a lot of crying, and her family said that they were so lucky to have Fatima and that they would never forget her. Fatima's mother, Maria, gave a statement to the media and just thanked everyone for all the support that they had given the family, and just was heartbroken over what these people had done to her daughter, especially because, again, she had opened the doors to Gladys and had supported her and just helped her escape her husband, so she just didn't understand how Gladys could do this to her. She said that she hoped that her daughter does get justice and that Mario pays for what he did. Fatima's grandfather also spoke out, and he was crying and had tears streaming down his face and said, quote, "This is so hard. I saw her be born and grow up. As a family, I hope justice is made and that no other girl or boy gets their life taken away." Fatima's family also reiterated that time was wasted during her disappearance, and an aunt of Fatima named Sonia said, quote, "Fatima has to be a name that reminds us that we live in a country of missing people, of inequality, and of people who do not care that she is one more. They thought that we were not going to claim her, that no one was going to speak for her, and that is not the case. Fatima was very loved." Now, something that was brought up during this time was actually the mental health of Maria, Fatima's mother. According to the aunt Sonia, she had actually reported Maria to social services because she was worried that Maria's mental health was impeding her from taking care of Fatima and her other children. Apparently, Maria suffered from an undiagnosed mental illness, which they believe had something to do with her being nervous and just having a very unstable temperament. Sonia had actually made a report in 2017 that Maria was neglecting her children and that she wanted to begin the process of obtaining custody and becoming the children's legal guardian. She says that officials did look into this, but then they just dropped the case and she never heard back from any of them. So she's frustrated at this. Sonia feels like from the report that she had made, Maria should have been investigated and maybe they would have taken Fatima away from Maria and she would be living with Sonia, and maybe Fatima would still be here today if Maria had received the mental health assistance she needed. Now, the topic of her mental illness was also shared after Fatima's death by Mexico City's general prosecutor, who in an interview said that when Fatima's body was found, Maria told authorities that she absolutely knew who killed her daughter. She gave them the name of a man named Alan Herrera, an ex-partner of one of her kids. Now, when authorities looked into him, they found out that he had been dead for years. But Maria was so adamant that that couldn't be true, and she told them, no, that's not possible, and that he was just pretending to be dead and using a different identity, and that he had ordered Fatima's murder. Detectives spoke to other family members about this guy, and they all confirmed that, yeah, Alan had died 10 years ago. Now, the reason the prosecutor shared this information is because he wanted to let the public know that Maria's mental health was not good. I mean, she was accusing a dead man of killing her daughter. So, Maria was actually sent to a psychiatric institution for a few days, and when she was released, Maria said that her own family was betraying her and just like inventing these stories about her just so that they could remove her from the big picture and so that they could stay with the unclaimed life insurance that was under Fatima's name, which was around 200,000 pesos. She says that they also wanted money that she had received from the government and from the community after Fatima's death, and that the family just wanted to take over Maria's house. Now, people did criticize the prosecutor for sharing Maria's mental struggles during this tragic moment for her, and people just thought it was completely unnecessary to share this information since, according to other people, Maria was a good mom and her mental illness didn't have anything to do with Gladys kidnapping Fatima. The public said, quote, stigmatizing people for their disability can send a harmful message that those with mental health conditions might be dangerous and cannot be good parents. People with mental health conditions have the right to raise a family, just like everyone else. The government should be ensuring that people with mental health conditions have the support that they need to let them be the best parents that they can. Now, I just wanted to include this in the video because if you do look up Fatima's case, you will read about this in many articles. So I wanted to mention it to you guys and just kind of hear your opinion on it. I have seen that a lot of people are frustrated with social services because, they're thinking, why are they getting paid if they're not really helping? If Sonia did report Maria to them and said that the children were being neglected, why didn't social services step in and remove Fatima from the house or just help them out? Fatima's death hit the community so hard, not only because they would help the family in any way that they could with food, toys, clothes, etc., and felt kind of close to her, but because Fatima's death was just days after Mexico was still mourning another femicide. Just 2 days before, 25-year-old Ingrid Escamilla was murdered by her boyfriend. He had brutally stabbed her, mutilated her body, and skinned her. Photos of her skinned corpse were leaked by police officers, and people were just so angry about this and outraged. Then, just 2 days after this, Fatima's death happened. It was just a lot for everyone, and there were a lot of protests happening at this time, and a lot of people tweeting hashtag Justicia para Fatima. Congress actually proposed creating a special committee solely for femicides and claimed a, quote, state of national emergency. According to Josefina, the president of the Committee on Children and Adolescents, 7 to 10 girls and boys disappear and are killed in the country every day. I mean, that's only what's reported. The public feels helpless about this since even public servants like police officers who are meant to protect women contribute to their abuse. In 2019, a woman was R-worded by an officer in his patrol car and another in a museum. In 2019, Mexico suffered 35,588 homicides, and more than 1,000 of those deaths were categorized as femicides. No one feels safe. Even Mexico's wealthiest are part of those numbers. On March 8th, 2020, there was a 2-day protest and a strike for women's rights. In an interview with a girl who attended said, quote, the whole city went purple with us. Every spray painting, broken window, fire lit, and song chanted ignited our movement and our purpose. We finally were able to tell the truth that the media often twists against us. I felt safer walking beside women with pepper spray and hammers than what I feel on a day-to-day basis. I could feel the love from every single woman there, and I was moved by the families of murdered girls and victims of abuse marching alongside us. Over a year after Fatima's death, the police officers who delayed the search for Fatima when Maria first reported her as missing came forward and apologized. And Fatima's family did accept the apology. Not only did the police receive a lot of criticism for how they handled Fatima's case, but so did her school. I mentioned earlier how Maria had called the school to let them know that she was going to be late and to wait with Fatima. Well, the employee who took the message never reported this to the other staff members, so they just just let Fatima walk away with Gladys, which is crazy. I mean, just because Fatima recognized her doesn't mean that the school should have let her just walk away with this random stranger. They should have called Maria to confirm that Gladys could take Fatima home. And it's just really disappointing how the school let this happen. Officials say that they plan to implement protocols for identifying people who pick kids up from school, and that they plan on having more security cameras as well as employees who are in charge of the security at drop-off and pickup. Fatima's aunt Sonia said, quote, "Fatima is not here with us because the protocols were not followed, because the institutions did not give it the attention that they should have." I mean, I honestly agree with the family and with the public's opinion on this. The school should have done better, and it's scary to know that if things don't change, this could potentially happen again. I mean, yes, the school employee did make a mistake by not letting the other staff members know that Fatima's mom was going to be late and that they needed to watch her, but either way, why were they not watching Fatima? Like, despite having to get a call from the mom saying, "Hey, can you watch my kid?" I feel like school officials should be in charge of watching the children until they are safely home. I also wonder how Gladys even knew that Fatima would still be at school that day. I mean, normally her mom would pick her up on time every single day, so what are the odds that the one day that Maria was late, Gladys went and kidnapped Fatima? It's just really odd. Like, how did Gladys know that this would be the right time to go through with her plan? Maybe she had been watching Fatima and saw that her mom was late? I don't know. Also, Irma, Mario's aunt that called the police, said that she never received the reward money that authorities were offering for any information regarding Mario and Gladys. She came out and said that she doesn't really care about the money, but that if they're not going to give it to her, they should at least share it to the public, because now people think that she has all this money and she fears that she will become a target for robberies, and she just fears for her safety. Authorities had previously told her that they had to wait until the government dealt with COVID before they could give her the money, but she has still not received it. Which is crazy because I feel like she should definitely get a reward for what she did. I mean, she literally turned on her own family and she reported them as soon as she found out about what they had done. As for what happened to Mario and Gladys, unfortunately, an entire year had passed after their arrest and there was still no trial date. Their defense granted them a suspension due to, quote, alleged irregularities and violations of their rights when they were arrested. And because of this, their trial date has been pushed back and there really is no movement in the case right now. If the couple is found guilty with the abduction and murder of Fatima, they could face 140 years in prison. As for their kids, Gladys's mom actually requested custody of her grandchildren and she asked for their protection for them as well, because the kids were actually receiving death threats after people found out that they were the kids of Fatima's killers, which is so sad. I mean, the kids shouldn't be getting literal death threats because of what their parents did. I mean, these are kids. They had nothing to do with this. Gladys's mom says that although Gladys suffered a lot of abuse at the hands of Mario and was a victim of his, she does need to pay for what she did, and what she did to Fatima is absolutely unforgivable. My thoughts and prayers go out to Fatima's family. This is truly disturbing, and I just don't understand how Gladys and Mario could be so evil. How could someone do this to a 7-year-old little girl? The fact that Gladys knew that she could kidnap Fatima so easily because she trusted her is extremely sad. People speculate that the day Fatima was kidnapped, she was approached by Gladys, who probably told her something along the lines of, "Oh, your mom called me and she asked me to come pick you up," and used that as a ruse to get Fatima to leave with her. Fatima had no reason to doubt her. I mean, Gladys used to live in her house. She knew her daughters. I mean, why would she doubt this woman? It's just really unfair, and I just really hope that both Gladys and Mario are punished for this and that Fatima receives justice. But alright, you guys, that is pretty much all the information I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for being here and for taking the time to listen to what happened to Fátima Cecilia. Please leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if there are ever any other cases that you would like me to cover, also let me know down below. I do have some Halloween videos coming for you guys, so stay tuned for those, as well as for new episodes for my podcast and new vlogs for my second channel. I know, it's crazy. I don't know what I'm doing and how I'm juggling so many things, but thank you guys for being so supportive and just for watching these videos and just helping me spread awareness. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!